A Monday finish at the Zurich Classic in New Orleans. Second playoff hole, the par 5 18th. Brian Stewart, 33 years of age, and the clutch shot of his life. A birdie to give him his first PGA Tour win and all that goes with it. Stewart over Ben An and Jamie Lovemark in the playoff, the 7th player in 11 years to make New Orleans his first win on the PGA Tour.
Golf Central. Brought to you by Titleist.
Welcome into Golf Central. Whit Watson and Billy Kratzer, joined momentarily by Tim Rosafort and Matt Adams. Winning on the PGA Tour is a life changer, and now Brian Stewart, Billy, knows all about it.
Well, he certainly does, Whit, and it gives him some time to work on his game back on the PGA Tour. He's a solid player. He showed it this week, but thankfully we got the 54 holes in. It's been a long week for these players.
Yeah, the weather was the highlight in New Orleans for much of the week. Third round spilling over into Monday, trying to get it finished. They went back out at 7 a.m. local time, 8 a.m. Eastern. And yes, we're playing golf in New Orleans, finally. Stewart, the co-leader at 11, the par 5.
Brian Stewart, he only averages 272 off the tee. So on par 5s, this is how he has to get it done. He has to get it done with the wedges. That's just inside 100 yards. Excellent golf shot.
Makes birdie there, moves to 14 under par. Jamie Lovemark playing in the same group. Birdie putt, same hole.
Well, he's really improved in this area. In fact, his whole short game has improved. His strokes gained putting this year, he's tied for 45th.
14 under for Lovemark. He was the co-leader. We moved to 13, the par 4, 75 yards.
And I think he's done a really nice job in this area of the game, 75 yards, as you said. So distance control, key right here, especially lift clean in place. Soft conditions.
He would take the solo lead after that birdie at 15 under par. Ben An, trailing by 1 at the 18th.
Well, he's a world-class player. Won the BMW PGA Championship at Whitworth. Knows how to win. Shot 65 in that final round. This is how you do it right here. This is how you force the hand of Jamie Lovemark.
Puts himself in the clubhouse at 15 under with a 65 in the third and final round. Lovemark, same hole, had a birdie putt to win it in regulation. That after reaching the green in 2, granted, had about 90 feet, but left himself a lot of work. So it's at least 2 men in the playoff. How about 3? Here is Brian Stewart to make birdie and join the extra golf.
Yeah, new putter, working well. When you don't miss inside 10 feet, better stay in the bag.
I think that thing's going to stay in the bag for a while. So, sudden death playoff, back to 18 we go. On missing the green with his 3rd, this was his 4th.
Yeah, and this was messy. I certainly didn't think I would see this from Ben An, especially with the way that he has played this season on both the PGA Tour and the European Tour.
He made bogey, took himself out. They go back and play 18 again, now just Lovemark and Stewart. This is Lovemark's 2nd at the par 5 from 284, and this is trouble. Well left. Advantage Stewart. He had to lay up after an awkward drive and an awkward stance for a second, and this is the shot they'll talk about.
Absolutely. Look at that stare down. Play to your strength, and that's what Stewart did.
So Lovemark got to watch that. Goes and finds his golf ball. It's plugged. Now he will get relief, but there's not much relief with all this mud. The ground just saturated in New Orleans.
Yeah, soft conditions, and with that drop, that's kind of right up against the cart path, but it was a clean lie. He thought it was worth the risk. Just a tough shot. That shot's tough on Tuesday.
Well, and he made the par, which is a good up and down from where he was. However, Stewart is in close now for birdie and the win. For the first time on the PGA Tour, Brian Stewart.
What a great feeling that is.
120th PGA Tour start. He was twice a runner-up. Stewart capturing the Zurich Classic. Lovemark with his 5th top 10 in 16 starts this year. Ben An, a career-best PGA Tour finish. And the sponsor's invitee, Bobby Wyatt, with a top 10 finish. He'll play his way into Wells Fargo this week in Charlotte. Our winner in New Orleans with George Savarikas.
Well, a wild week here at the Zurich Classic for Brian Stewart. How were you able to prevail in the 2-hole playoff?
I think it was just kind of hanging in there. I knew Jamie hit it a long ways and he was going to be able to get there in 2. I just kind of had to hit some good wedges on these par 5s.
And what was the thought process right at impact on the second playoff hole?
I knew I had it on a good line. I just was wondering if the distance was right, and luckily it was.
Was your mind able to start racing at all as you were walking up on the hole and you kind of saw where Jamie was?
Not really. Not until I had the putt to win. I started kind of getting a little nervous, I guess, but was able to knock it in.
Considering how long a road it's been, you turned pro back in 2005. To get your first PGA Tour victory now at this stage in your career, what does it mean to you?
It means a lot. It means a lot of hard work by a lot of people to support me, and I don't know, it feels great.
How magical a week it was. You go bogey-free. It seemed like nearly flawless golf, and every putt that you stared at, it seemed like you were finding the cup.
Yeah, I was in play a lot off the tee, and I had a few loose irons, but I was able to miss them in the right spots, and then my short game and putting was great.
Big picture, you get the two-year exemption, if you will, on the PGA Tour. Also, the trip to Augusta. Has that started to soak in at all, how this sets up your career going forward?
Not too many of those. Haven't thought about those other perks, but the 2-year exemption is real nice. Obviously, playing out of the conditional category this year, not sure how many I was going to be able to get in, so it was nice to take care of that.
And now you get the trip down Magnolia Lane coming. Brian Stewart, part of the field for the 2017 Masters. Great victory. Let's send it back to the studio.
Bogey-free, 3 rounds granted, but still bogey-free in New Orleans. Last player to do that and win the event, Lee Trevino, back in 1974. He was 21 under par. That was the full 72-hole event. Joined by Billy Kratzer, Tim Rosafort, and Matt Adams, host of Fairways of Life at golfchannel.com. Rosie, starting with you, thoughts on Stewart in this big win?
I caught up with him on the ride from his hotel to the airport in New Orleans on his way to Charlotte. A made man now, at least for the next 2.5 years, no longer a prisoner of that 125 to 150 category. He told me, guys, though, that he was channeling off the wins earlier this year by Vaughn Taylor at Pebble. Remember, he went from 447 to 100 with his win. Jim Herman in Houston, 189 to 68. Stewart was 513 in the world before this victory. And he's a guy who has a reputation to be very quiet out on tour, and also very hard on himself, too. Checked in with Tom Gillis, who's also from Michigan, a buddy of his, sort of a mentor. And he said they were just playing a couple weeks ago in Valero early in the week. And Stewart was going around the golf course saying, I'm the worst golfer on the PGA Tour. A lot of guys feel that way. A lot of guys say that. Kratz, you laugh because you're part of that fraternity. But obviously today, he was the best player on the PGA Tour.
Rosie, I'll tell you something. When you look at his performance over those 3 rounds, he had 21 putts in the first round and then 26 in the latter 2, the second round and then the final round earlier today. He was using an Odyssey counterbalanced, or counterweighted, if you please, putter to do that. And Billy, I got a question for you. Here he was, the 8th first-time winner in the last 12 Zurich Classics. He's the 11th first-time winner this year on the PGA Tour and the 5th of the last 6. I don't know what's in the water, and I know there's a lot of it this week, but something's going on.
Well, it is fascinating when you start rattling off those numbers. But what's amazing to me is what Rosie said, is that you have this many starts. You don't get that many opportunities when you're playing out of that conditional 126 to 150. And when you see a Vaughn Taylor win out at Pebble Beach, when you see a Brian Stewart down in New Orleans win, I can't put into words just how difficult that is to go out there and find the magic for that 1 week. And certainly you can look at the short game and you can say, all of a sudden, you know what, I found it with the short game because I'm not that long off the tee. I have to do it with efficiency. And no one was more efficient in the short game than Brian Stewart. But I love to see these guys. I love these success stories when these guys get a chance to go out there, show their skills, and they come away with a win. And congratulations to Brian.
And wait, look who he beats. He beats phenoms in Love Mark, and also Wyatt right behind him there.
Speaking of Love Mark, and his mark has become so close on the PGA Tour. Had 2 chances to win it at 18 on Monday. This in regulation. Again, he was 90 feet away with his eagle putt. Left himself too much work for birdie. Could have won the tournament outright. First playoff hole. Another chance at the same hole. They played 18 again. 12-footer for birdie to win. This one did not touch the hole. 68 in the final round. He talked about it afterwards.
Hit a bad drive the first hole. You know, I saw Ben was in good position, so I decided to, you know, press it and try to get up there, and obviously kind of hit a tree, and we were all kind of making a mess of that one. And then hit a great drive the second hole and just kind of double-crossed myself. Had a pretty good number to carry that front bunker, and just, you know, I had a bad shot. He hit an, you know, an incredible shot from whatever, 160 yards, so very deserving. You know, it's all right.
Big picture, I mean, you lost in the playoff back in '09. It was a long road to get back here. Obviously, you want to get the win, but what does it mean to you that you're getting that close now?
Yeah, inching my way. You know, hopefully I win one of these. You know, it was a good week overall.
And this is what we're talking about. He's got 6 career top 10 finishes, 5 of those coming this season. T2 in New Orleans this year. Go back to Bay Hill, the Arnold Palmer Invitational, top 10. Career Builder, Sony, and RSM Classic, all top 10 finishes. In 2 of those cases, '09, and this year losing in a playoff. Lovemark, 2-time All-American and an NCAA individual champion at Southern Cal. Rosie, he was one of these can't-miss kids, and there have been a lot of them. But he was one of those guys that was supposed to bust out immediately on the PGA Tour. Hadn't quite happened yet.
Well, first of all, great athlete. Could throw a football 65 yards. No problem dunking a basketball. Father played basketball at Drake. Uncle played at Wimbledon. So never a shortage of athletic confidence. But golfing-wise as well, we look at this photo. I wrote a column about him earlier this year. Look at the guys he's surrounded by at the Walker Cup. Dustin Johnson, Ricky Fowler, Billy Horschel. Everybody knows them. Some people might say, who's the other guy in the picture? But talking to him, he's 2 years older than Day. He's about a year older than McIlroy, and he feels like at some point in time he's still got the confidence, in spite of getting knocked around a little bit, that someday, you know, he's going to be where they are. As he said to me, they'd be taking a different path than I am. He's got some catching up to do, obviously, but not in terms of the confidence level.
Well, some of these players come out so highly credentialed from their U.S. or from their amateur ranks and how they played, and there's a lot of expectation. So we don't know what inward pressure they put on themselves. And right now you have a Jamie Lovemark who is web.com, PGA Tour, web.com, PGA Tour, web.com, PGA Tour. I think this year, being where he is, where his game is, having the chance to win, where he stands in the FedEx Cup, this might be the incline that he needed to say, you know what, I belong out here and I'm going to stay out here now.
After you guys did the post game earlier today, I went and looked up a stat because you were talking about his play with wedge in hand. Here's a guy that even this week on a wet golf course averaged over 300 yards off the tee. He's 24th in proximity to the hole from 100 to 125 yards. That really impressed me. Obviously, he's grinding in that part of his game.
Talking about credentials, the young man from South Korea, Ben An, the youngest player ever to win the U.S. Amateur Championship. That was several years ago. One of his key strokes here on Monday at 15, the par 4, 28-foot birdie putt. Shot 65 in the final round. That is nothing to sneeze at. Ends up in the playoff. Can't quite get it done. He talked about his week.
Tied for second. It's not. You know, it's not bad, isn't it? Yeah. So you know, it would have been better if I won. It made my this year a lot easier. If they know what I'm going to play and stuff. A lot of things. I think. You know, I play great, and then you know my game's there, and hopefully you know I play well the next couple of weeks.
How's this going to change how often we're going to see you on the PGA Tour for the rest of the year?
I'll try to play as many as I can, definitely. You know, my goal is trying to get a PGA Tour card this year, so I think I'm pretty close. So you know, hopefully you'll see a lot of me this year.
Career best for An on the PGA Tour. He won the 2015 BMW PGA on the European Tour. I mentioned the U.S. Amateur Championship at the age of 17. That was in 2009. Projected 24th in the world golf rankings. That would make him the highest-ranked male player from South Korea. Rosie, one of these players that if you're in the game, you know the name. If you're a casual fan, you might not know him yet, but I think you will.
Definitely. He's a kid who went to the Ledbetter Academy when he was 15 years old, so he broke through all the cultural barriers. You could tell he's very comfortable with English. Kind of did a Brooks Koepka deal, left Berkeley, and went to the European Tour. As Ledbetter said, how many Korean players go make that trek? And lives at Lake Nona, another example of him. I'm sure he shops, you know, you get it.
Right.
He's an American Korean kid and with a lot of talent, obviously. And The U.S. Amateur, I believe, is just an indication, and the BMW, which is the best tournament in Europe, of this kid continuing to follow the upward arc and be in the Olympics before it's over. Right now, he's the leading Korean player.
That tournament last year, 2015 at Wentworth, was called the flagship event of the European Tour, the BMW PGA Championship, where he was in the mix, and I was assigned to do on-course commentary that week. In fairness, we were waiting to see how he could compete against the best and if the pressure would slowly consume him. He never showed it. He never blinked. If you looked at him today, he was 14 of 14 fairways, 15 of 18 in greens and regulation, in 27 putts. This kid doesn't back down.
Yeah, and when I watch a player play, and when they put their hat in the ring and they get in contention, a chance to win the golf tournament, I love to see the way they react because the game can get pretty quick. And all of a sudden, if your head starts spinning, you need to start slowing it down. Well, Ben An has that ability to slow the game down. So I think he's going to be a good player for a long time just because of his attitude and the way that he approaches it mentally.
Last time a player won a U.S. Amateur and a BMW PGA or British PGA, Arnold Palmer. Not bad company, just saying. Fairways of Life, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9. Matt, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Good to talk to you. When we come back on Golf Central, we follow the progress of world #1 Jason Day. He gears up for a busy summer of golf. We talked about Bobby Wyatt a moment ago, taking advantage of his opportunity in New Orleans, former Alabama star who is on the rise. And a look ahead to Charlotte and the Wells Fargo. That and more ahead on Golf Central.
Golf Central is brought to you by Titleist, the #1 ball at the Zurich Classic. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. Shipsticks, the largest golf bag shipping company in the world, simplifying the way you travel.